Welcome back. We've been in the middle of a flip challenge where we've been trying to flip random things in the garage to land ourselves into our next project. And on the last video, we ended up with this kind of rusty, tetanus-filled, two-seater off-road go-kart. The thing sat for 2 years uncovered outside, so it was in pretty rough shape. But we did manage to get it fired up and running. It's been a few weeks since I uploaded. A lot of that's due to the fact that I was ordering parts that were taking a week or 2 weeks to get here, and I just felt like I wasn't making a ton of progress. But in that time, sitting here planning on what to do with this thing, I did make a decision. Now, if you caught the end of our last video, you will have seen that we have a scooter / moped frame sitting in the back. Now, I picked that thing up for only $40, and what I was mostly interested in was the fact that it had a title and it had a license plate. Now, naturally, the gears started turning, and I thought, what happens if I take the moped scooter rear end and stick it on the back of this go-kart and turn this go-kart into a go-kart based reverse trike? So we got a lot to do. We're going to sit down, make a list of it all, and then get to work figuring out how this is all going to come together. To get a better idea of how this is all going to work, I need to strip things down to their more basic components, and we're starting with the moped frame. Well, this is like bringing me back to the days of Nick and I in middle school building our BMX bikes. So this is our scooter frame. The VIN number is here on this piece. I wish there was a VIN number somewhere back here, because this is really kind of the main parts of what I expect to need. For me, the planning stages of a project like this usually involve just staring at things until they start to make sense. So with that in mind, and since I know the engine runs pretty well, we're going to get that pulled out so that I can have the naked go-kart swing arm next to the moped frame and try and work out how they're going to come together. We're going to strip this go-kart swing arm down, try and strip the paint and rust off of it. We're going to use some aircraft paint stripper. This stuff's really nasty, kind of expensive, smells really horrible, and for me, unfortunately, it did not work at all. So, out comes the wire wheel and a lot of tedious grinding. It's not perfect, but it's good enough, especially since we don't know how much of the swing arm's actually going to be used. And on that note, we had another breakthrough in the design process and a marketplace find. So crammed into the back of the Forester here, we got ourselves a new swing arm for the go-kart. I had Nick kind of sit around and join me in my mechanical contemplation of how we're going to make the whole back end of this thing work. And we kind of landed on just finding a motorcycle swing arm that we can kind of graft onto the go-kart swing arm, then rigid mount the go-kart swing arm to the body of the go-kart, and then just utilize this suspension that's on the back of this motorcycle frame. So we're going to be combining the go-kart swing arm, the scooter frame, and this motorcycle swing arm all together to kind of build our single rear wheel, one step closer to having a street legal go-kart trike thing that's definitely going to get me pulled over and probably get me a ticket. For those that are curious, this is a 1978 Yamaha XS650, or I guess it's an XS0 since it has no engine. But it's got some good things going for it for this project, like a steel swing arm that I can pretty easily weld on and modify if I have to. It's also got a disc brake that I can hopefully plumb into the go-kart's existing braking system, and it also has 530 chain sprockets, pretty cheap and available. So let's get this thing pulled off and offered up to the moped frame to see how well they might cooperate. So this is a very rough and crude idea of what the setup's gonna be here. The sprocket, I think we're gonna actually have to flip the wheel upside down and put the sprocket on the other side. Well, we will have to, because that's just how it will have to hopefully line up with the sprocket coming out of the engine. This sprocket is the wrong chain size, but there are 530 chain sprockets available for pretty cheap, so that's not a super big concern. The width here between these tubes on the moped frame or the scooter frame are pretty close, so fabricating some shock mounts should not be difficult. In that respect, we'll have to remove this crossbar portion here to allow for some upward travel. Again, not a big deal. Getting closer to the idea here. So I was actually setting this thing up in the driveway to take a picture for the thumbnail of this video, and sort of had another revelation. I went to put this, the go-kart swing arm in there, and I was like, man, it just doesn't look good for the thumbnail. And so I was like, maybe let's set it out. If I stick the scooter frame in here, and we've got our motorcycle swing arm, I had it set up in just a way, and I was like, you know what, that looks pretty good. And then I was sitting here staring at it, and I was thinking, why could I not just take this GY6, cut the mounts off of this go-kart swing arm, take the measurements. The mounts are the exact same width as this scooter frame, like down here up to here. So it'd be very simple process to chop the engine mounts off the go-kart swing arm and just kind of stick them on this moped frame. So if the motor can sit right here in what would have been the moped footwell or pass through, and if I can get it to swing into here and that sprocket on the engine to line up with the motorcycle sprocket, then this whole thing, I think, gets maybe a little bit shorter, but also a little simpler. I get to keep the VIN number as it is on the scooter frame. The scooter frame is less chopped up, less modified, so in the eyes of what I'm perceiving, in the eyes of law enforcement, will be, yeah, sure, there's a scooter on the back, you know? And so I think I can get this done still utilizing the go-kart swing arm, but kind of more leaning on the scooter frame, which is probably the more sensible thing to do in a legal sense. Then what's needed is basically to hard mount this scooter frame to the back of the go-kart here, which will probably involve, you know, some bars coming out from the sides like this, kind of the way we did the stretched Go Quad build. Have some arms that come out and connect to here, you know, some attachment points here that attach to the neck here and down to the bottom. I think I want to go with that. And then also, let me bring you in closer here. The motorcycle swing arm, this mounting through bolt here is just about the perfect width of this kickstand mount. Now, this kickstand mount is not very sturdy, but it can be reinforced. So there's some architecture there that I can use, and I can reinforce it to mount the swing arm here. So now, yet again, the plans have kind of changed, but I now feel pretty confident in the direction we're gonna go with this. So in the next video, we're gonna start cutting this stuff up and welding and actually sticking this thing together now that we have the majority of all the pieces we need. So I'll see you guys on the next video.